Today I have an amazing guest on the podcast, a really close friend of mine, a guy who I've spent hours and hours training with, living with. We've spent endless time talking about triathlon and talking about endurance sports and life in general. It's my friend Andre Lopes, #1 ranked Brazilian triathlete at the moment, so definitely a hot property on the scene. Just enjoyed talking about, his upbringing in Brazil, how he got into triathlon. It really hasn't been that long, so his kind of rapid ascension into the sport and the success that he's had thus far, plus his goals for the future. So enjoy my conversation with my good friend, Andre Lopes. All right, guys, welcome to the Endurance Matters podcast, another episode today. Happy to have my good buddy, Andre Lopes, on the podcast today. I first met Andre 2019 at 70.3 Bariloche. I remember we hung out for like 2 hours after the race, like eating soup or something in the post-race tent. And I think Andre is probably the person who I've spent the most time training with in my career, arguably.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Yeah. Anyways, Andre, thank you very much for coming on the podcast today.
Thanks for having me, guys.
It's Mr. Another Day, Another $1.
Yeah, if you know, you know.
You got to explain the another $1 to these guys.
Yeah, so it's I have a hashtag that is another day, another $1. So I make every day count. But yeah, we had some customs hat made from a nutrition sponsor in Brazil, and then we had the back of the hat had the Brazilian flag, my name, but then the guy who did the hashtag in Portuguese, he miscalculated the D's on the dollars. It was another day, another $1.
There's 2 D's on the $1. So anyways, Jeannie and I always make fun of Andre for the another day, another $1.
Yeah.
But anyways, that was, Andre and I have spent like so much time together training. We actually rode this morning. We did an hour easy on the gravel bikes, but yeah, it's just, Andre came in the sport 2019, and since then, has been around me quite a lot. So we know each other really well. So I was looking forward to the podcast today. Obviously, just learning, getting the audience to know more about you, and then hopefully it's another opportunity for me to even dive a little bit deeper. But first icebreaker question to start. I gotta ask because the people want to know, what's the Chipotle order? Walk us through the Chipotle order.
It has evolved through the years. At first, I didn't really like Chipotle, but now it's very simple. It's like white rice, pinto beans. I get the chicken al pastor. I think they still have it.
Yeah.
Then I got the veggies. It's a must. Also, I always ask for a double scoop of rice if they don't fill it up all the way, because I gotta get the carbs in. Yep. Side of tortilla, and then I got corn, the pico de gallo salsa, and then guac is a must. Totally. A little bit of lettuce, because you don't need a lot of lettuce. And that's it. I think that's pretty simple.
Do you do the cheese on there or no?
Not usually. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Well, you're forgetting like the most important Brazilian addition.
The pinto beans.
No, well, okay, you didn't mention the pinto beans, but what's the extra addition?
I don't know.
The extra rice at home.
Oh, the extra. Oh, that's a trick we don't need to share. Yeah, you cook the rice from the night before and add it to the bowl, so you can have more carbs.
It's quadruple rice.
Quadruple rice.
That's the move.
That's a pro move.
That's a pro move. I've spent enough time living with Andre that I know that's the way you got to do it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, all right. First real question is, who's Andre Lopes? What do you do, and why do you do it?
Andre Lopes is I was actually born in the U.S., but my whole family is from Brazil. My dad was just working at Ohio State University getting his doctorship. It was a 4-year process, and the last year I was born there and moved back to Brazil when I was 1 year old. But yeah, just like this little kid that loved to play outside, play soccer my whole life. Every single night, my mom had to call me out and like, oh, it's 9 p.m. and gotta go to bed. So basically like go to school and like just play outdoors in my backyard. In Brazil, we lived in tall buildings, so we have a big community living together. So I had a lot of friends. Always grew up playing the dirt and barefoot. I used to joke that like I can walk barefoot in the street, like it is not a problem because I grew up like and now I don't have the same callus on my feet. Yeah. So I was very into sports since my childhood, and then I got into tennis a little bit when I was like on my mid-10s, my teenagers. And I always had the dream of being a professional athlete, but I never had the talent to play or the opportunity to break into the soccer. In Brazil is very competitive to be a soccer player. I would say it's kind of like being an FLL player here in the US. And there's not many opportunities, but if you make it, you're like golden for the rest of your life kind of thing. But my parents never really like pushed me to do sports. I kind of like me trying to get in and like really, I don't know, I had a will to like push myself. Like, and I would, yeah, my mom couldn't take me to practice. So I would just like run to practice or take my bike, even though it was like 1-2 miles away. Like at the time it seemed like a big deal. But yeah, and then I basically, when I was getting to the point of going to university, I still had the dream of being like a professional tennis player, but I had like a very bad injury on my shoulder, tendonitis. I mean, it was at this time I thought it was a big thing, but it wasn't. If I had the right team around me, probably could have worked around it. But I kind of like just gave up because it was a very expensive sport. My parents couldn't afford it to travel around the world, and tennis is actually one of the sports that's more expensive than triathlon, I think, because you gotta the gear is not very expensive, but you gotta travel a lot every weekend and compete in hotels and flights and everything. So basically every weekend you're traveling to race. But yeah, I decided to go to university and study electrical engineering. It was kind of like industrial electrical engineering. So like I got 2 degrees in one. And at the middle of my university, I had a friend that he did Ironmans. And I basically, like, he told me to do staff 1 year. And I was like, oh, why not? He's like, hey, you got a lot of food at the end of the day. And everything that's left over, just bring it home. So I was like, yeah, poor college kid. Just like
sounds on brand.
Exactly. And actually, that year was the year that Team Madonna won. So I still, the first time I met him, I was like, hey, I gave you water on 2013 when you did your Ironman Brazil, Florianopolis. So that's a cool story. But yeah, so I just like, I at the moment that I saw that race happening, I was like, oh my God, I got to do this. Like it's very, very inspiring. I saw people like older than my grandma finishing. I was like, there's no way I cannot do this. Yeah. And then it began. Like I kind of like got my first triathlon bike and started training like around, I actually signed up for Ironman Brazil and did Ironman Brazil like within 8 months of training, like I think it was 2016. And quickly after that, I realized I wanted to be a pro athlete and had the talent because I qualified to Kona, my first age group race, within like less than 12 months in the sport. And then did Kona, and then I started training with pro squad in Brazil. And finished my degree and basically moved to the US and started racing in 2018.
Which is not that long ago, which is kind of crazy for the amount of results that you've had. I mean, I want to back up a little bit. And like one thing that I know that most people don't know is that you obviously talked about your time in university, but you also spent some time in Germany during that time. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. I had a scholarship to go abroad.
Okay.
Like an internship to go like study in Germany, and that's where I actually start making my first dollars or euros.
Yeah.
And that's where I actually got my first triathlon bike, $1,500 Fuji Narcon,
nice.
Tiagra 10 speed.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Perfect.
did a job.
Yeah. And were you still doing a bit of bodybuilding at that time, or had you fully transitioned over to triathlon?
No, I hadn't transitioned to triathlon. I was actually in a phase that I was like, yeah, I mean, I don't know if a lot of people know, but yeah, I was a little bit into gym. I was taking gym very seriously, going like 7, 8, 9 times a week, like training lower body, upper body, like eating, doing meal prep. I showed Justin a couple of pictures of I had like 25 more pounds than I have right now. I think I was like 170, 175. So
it was like Andre ate Andre.
Yeah. So yeah, everything that I did always all in.
Yeah.
So that was the one thing that I was like, okay, I'm going to do bodybuilding or lifting and try to get jacked and look good for the girls. Like I'm going to do as best as I can. So I was like going to the gym before work, going after work, doing cardio, like, and just like all the stuff that bodybuilders do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Try to lean out, look like shredded. So yeah, it was a period of time that I probably lasted for like 3-4 years, between like 18 to 22. And that actually set me up really nice to like biking, because like I was very strong lifting, because I was like, I didn't want to just look like the V shape. I was like more like from the ground up and like look like a static. So yeah, it was a good time that I just like, I got really frustrated when I found out you could take like other stuff to like facilitate the process, and I was just trying to be all clean and everything. And like, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I kind of demoralized a bit with it.
Yeah, because every time you go and like spend like 1 month without doing anything, you like lose all your progress. So like it's kind of frustrating.
Yeah, one thing that I always found interesting when you tell me stories about that time was like you showed me some of your Garmin files from back then, and you were running like your cardio was like 10K runs in like 40 minutes. That's pretty good cardio for like, just if you're like a bodybuilder guy, like I don't see a lot of bodybuilders doing 40-minute 10Ks as their cardio, you know?
No, yeah, I think that's where it came to the aesthetic side. Yeah, I was looking at my Garmin the other day, and yeah, I was doing some runs like 10, 15K, like, and I always go out of the gates like 4 minutes per K, 6:30 pace, and just hold on.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was kind of impressive looking back. It's like it wasn't that easy to do that, even like as a regular person.
Yeah, 100%. And you mentioned like, yeah, once you had got exposure to the Ironman and you realized, oh, this is something that's cool, you got into it, you got the bike, you raced Ironman Brazil. Did you win your age group?
I did win my age group, yeah. 9:26. It was the 18 to 24. I think I was 23 at the time.
Okay.
So, or 24 at the time. 2018, I was 24. 2016, I was 24. Yeah. So it was my last year, my first and my last year on the 18 to 24.
Yeah. And you qualified for Kona and went to Kona?
I did qualify for Kona. I didn't even know what was Kona at the time when I got this lot. I was like, oh my God, I get to go to Hawaii. I was like, had a surfing period. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to bring my surfboard and surf there too. So, but yeah, it was I call it Kona was very special.
Yeah. I think that's like, it's so much going on, right? I think you feel like you get this opportunity to get into triathlon, you immediately have quick success, and you also like, realize that it's something that's cool and you're good at it. I think realizing that you have a natural talent at something that's really cool to find and just kind of like perpetuates this, thing of like, that success is coming pretty quickly and you're making it happen. So when you ultimately, I guess, like take me through a little bit, you had that period in time when you win your age group in Brazil, you go to Kona. What's the transition to get over to the States and be a pro? Like, how does that all come about?
Yeah, it was a very long process, I would say. Like, I mean, not long actually, but it was, for me, it felt very long because as soon as I crossed the finish line in Kona, I think I was 6 in my age group, in the 18 to 24. So I was between the 6 best athletes until 24 years old in the age group. But I quickly realized I wanted to be a professional athlete, and but it was not as simple as that, Like, I mean, I had no background in swimming, biking, or running. I just had a good engine from playing outside and working out my whole life. But I had a lot of injuries in the beginning. It was like, just like I signed up to the Ironman Brazil 2017 because I wanted to win overall age group. Then I would feel like I deserve it to be a pro. And I got injured, couldn't race that year. And I wanted to do Kona one more time as an age group and win overall before I transitioned to the pro. But like, I was doing my last year in college, 2017, and all I could think about was triathlon. I could not stop thinking about, I would put my training priority in my studies. My parents did not like that because at some point I wanted to give out and like not finish my degree, but I was like, no, dude, you got to finish. Like, that's the minimum requirement from us. Like, you spend like 6 years, you got to finish, go all the way. But yeah, I think turning pro in Brazil, like I had connections. So like I was like on the top of my age grouper. I think I did my last race as an age grouper was Challenge Florianopolis 2017. And I was second overall. So that qualified me to race in the pro field. And then I knew that the Brazilian races were not as competitive as the US. I mean, the US was like at the time, Ben Hoffman, Tim O'Donnell, like Tyler Butterfield, like all those guys were like, Craig Alexander was still racing. So those guys were like Jan Frodeno. They were like either Europe and US. So I was like, man, if I really want to go all the way on this, I need to go to the US. I need to like train with an American coach. I need to like be around top athletes. So I contacted Ryan Bolton. I think I contacted all the top 10 coaches in that had athletes in the top 10 in 2016 or 17. And the only one that replied to me were Ryan Bolton.
Wow. And
we had a call, and he was like, man, come on in. Like, welcome to the Bolton squad. So basically, I graduated college. I had, I think, like $10,000 saved in my bank account that I worked, like, in the last 2 or 3 years of college. I was, like, saving everything that I could. And I basically packed my bags and left my girlfriend and just basically, moved to the U.S. Because I had the citizenship, so that was a little easier for me to stay here. So I was like, I'm gonna go all in. I have like this long-term goal. That's me 3 years, 5 years, and 10 years. And so I showed that to Ryan, to my family. I was like, if I don't hit these milestones when I reach 3 years, I'm gonna stop and go back and work, as an engineer. But then like those things came very easy. And then because like my 5-year goal was to start doing Ironmans, and with my 10 years goal was to race Kona. And I already did that
as a pro.
And I already did that in 2000 with 3-4 years in the sports.
What was the 3-year goal that you wrote down?
The 3 years goal was to make prize money.
Make a prize money, like a single prize money check.
Yeah.
Wow.
And kind of like a top, like I think it was a top podium.
Yeah, and you did that, right?
I did that. Yeah,
because you had gotten on Augusta podium.
Augusta was like within 2019 was my first podium with Sanders. I think that was top 3 or enough prize money to be able to make a living and not like just have to work.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean that's easier said than done. Almost easier back then than it is now.
Yeah,
but,
now it's very competitive.
Yeah, 100%. So did you immediately come over and go and train with his squad in Tucson or in New Mexico? Like what was the training setup straight away?
Yeah, so Ryan usually he sets up his year. He stays in Tucson. I mean, you were there this year. He stays there until like March, April, and then so I was there until like April, and then I went to Santa Fe, where his home base is, and I lived on his casita, like it was like a little guest house next to his house for like 6 months until I basically ran out of money.
Yeah, perfect.
And so yeah, I lived in Tucson, Santa Fe, then I went to New Jersey because I have a aunt, my godmother, that lives there, and then I spent like basically 6-7 months with her. Until I actually met Rachel Olsen, which is my current girlfriend. And then like I moved to Boulder at the end of 2019 after like a good season.
Yeah. Yeah, like I mentioned earlier in the podcast, I had met Andre 2019, so it was just before you had met Rachel and before you had even moved out to Boulder.
Yeah.
Yeah. Were you even thinking about coming to Boulder at that time?
I was saving money to come in the summer. So I was like working as a lifeguard. So basically like in Santa Fe, I work as a busser, like in a restaurant at night shifts, 2 times a week on the weekends because that's when you make the most money. And then in New Jersey, I work as a lifeguard because it was like the easiest thing I could think about because I could get a free membership, get some prize, get some salary, and like my aunt was paying for all my food and my housing, so I didn't have to worry about it. So I was very lucky. Yeah. And then I saved money to come in the summer for 2 months in Boulder, and that's where I first met Rachel, but that race in Bariloche was early in the year. I actually had Charlie. Remember the pilot?
Oh, yeah, I remember.
He might listen to the podcast. But yeah, he flew me out there because he was a pilot for American Airlines, and like I flew business class the first time. I was like,
I remember like finishing the race. I was 3rd, you were 5th.
I was 5th, yeah.
Yeah, and I remember like I was like kind of okay with the race. I remember I was running in 2nd for a long time. I was like, and then I got passed later in the race. I was like upset that I came 3rd, but I was still happy I got on the podium anyways. And Andre just comes barreling in. He's like so stoked. He talked my ear off for like 2 hours. That guy Charlie, the pilot, was there. We were just hanging out. I had a couple friends down there, but I didn't really have anywhere to be. So I was like, sure, I'll hang out with this guy. But I think I remember at the time, like I don't remember the conversation in vivid detail, but I remember you like being really stoked, wanting to like come to Boulder. I think you were asking about like the crew I was training with, trying to ask about like what's it like, this, that, and the other. And I think you said before we left, you were like, I'll see you next month or something, you know?
Yeah, I was already planning on coming, and you were at the time were like training with the Julie squad, and like you guys had Team Don, Team O'Donnell, like the really solid crew. I was like, hey, like I was like this young kid trying to break in the scene and like just be respectful and meet the locals in Boulder, because I think that was the place that I eventually wanted to leave. Yeah. But I couldn't afford it because, as you know, it's not as cheap as it sounds staying in Boulder full time.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like also when you first got there, like this is a question that I have here. You know, you've always been a very social guy. Like I realized that, you know, when we first met when you were in Bariloche, when we came back to Boulder, you know, you had the mutual connection to Sam Long via Ryan Bolton. So I think that's probably how we first got together training, because you were training with Sam quite a lot. And I remember back in 2019, like we just trained a whole bunch because we would run, you know, on Sundays at Tom Watson. You'd come to the Julie Dibbins swims that we were doing twice a week. So I feel like I had exposure to you like probably 3 or 4 days a week at the time. Like I want to hear a little bit more about when you first got here, maybe up until now, because you spent time training with Sam, you spent time training with Ben Hoffman, time training with myself, Matt Hansen, Tim O'Donnell, Rudy Von Berg. Like these are the top dudes in Boulder. Like what's 1 or 2 things that you enjoyed training with each of these people, and maybe what's one thing that you learned?
Oh man, I mean, it's like I came here to learn. Like I came here with my open chest, and like I was like, this is an opportunity for me to learn with these guys. I mean, yeah, Ben was very open since the beginning. Like he gave me a very warm welcome. Ryan was very, like my coach was like my mentor. So, I mean, I'm really grateful for all the guidance he gave me the first 5 years. But yeah, coming to Boulder was very eye-opening. I mean, the way I was observing everything, the way you guys train, the way you guys eat, the way you guys recover. I would always ask questions, and I always to be respectful and like just to try to get my foot in the door, like, and just like be in the community. So yeah, I always like training like with other people. Sometimes I probably train too much wrong, like just trying to team up other people and like be kind of like their training buddy. But I just learned a lot. Like, I mean, I feel like when you have like guys who are like top 3 in Kona, podium at Kona, guys who have been podium in 7.3 worlds, like Rudy was, I mean, you were like doing super well. Like, I mean, and Sam was not even that good at the time. Like, he was like trying to break into the scene. Like, he was like this goofy kid that was like trying to, like, everyone's laughing at it. Like, now everyone's like, oh my God, he actually came up to the scene. So, I mean, I feel like I learned a little bit of every one of them, like a little bit with Tyler, a little bit with T.O., like a little bit with Matt Hansen, a little bit with you. Like, Sam is one of my best friends, but like, it's just like, I feel like it's just like, I feel like if you surround yourself with good people and people that are at the top of the game, eventually you're going to get there. So that was my mindset. And I feel like that's still my mindset. I'm still like trying to learn as much as I can and I mean, we talk like a lot about training and like how we get to the next step and I feel like it's long time coming for us and it will probably eventually happen.
Yeah. I mean, they say it all the time, but you are a collection of the people you surround yourself with. Where they say it's a collection of like the 5 closest people to you. That's who your personality is, and that's who you end up becoming. So I think if you surround yourself with low performers, you'll be a low performer. If you surround yourself with high performers,
you're eventually going to be a high performer.
100%. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think that's been really interesting. So I mean, it must have been like, of those guys, like, who do you think was like the biggest mentor to you? Training wise, do you think it was Ryan? Do you think it was maybe someone like Sam being alongside, because you guys are obviously similar age, or do you think it was someone like a Hoffman or a T.O. or a Hansen or something?
I think like all of them contributed a lot. I think like Hoff, T.O., Hansen, and Tyler probably were the biggest ones.
Yeah.
I think like with Sam, with you, like we're just like more brainstorming and like trying to see what we can do and like just have fun. Train. That was the most fun training was with you guys. And then with those guys are more like just trying to respect them and like try to like see what they do, like how they do their long rides, how they do the long runs. Like, why am I training faster than him and racing slower than him? Like, what is the answer? And I feel like with those guys were probably the most lessons that I learned. How to pace, how to race in the heat, how like, oh my God, Tyler's like, oh, you don't take a gel when you like start a bike, like you gotta like put that caffeine in that. You gotta get the sugar. And Ryan was like just like building the whole plan and like just getting like me, Sam, and Hoff in the same structure, so it was easy to get on the same page. But yeah, it was basically it was a lot of. I'm still learning, so
yeah, of course, you never stop. I mean, like I've been in this is my 11th season. I'm still learning so much, and I think that's what keeps us in it. Is like, you just want to keep evolving and keep learning. And I'm with you too. Like all of the people who, it's an interesting dynamic now. I feel like for guys like us who are in our 30s, like you've got the people who are late 30s, early 40s who are like definitely in that mentorship role. And then you've got us who are like, okay, well, we're not really kids anymore, so we can't really be just like observing and learning. It's almost our responsibility now to like set the example for the younger kids coming up. You know, you've got some kids now living with you who are a bit younger, newer pros. I've got some kids I've been training with who are in town. Like, I feel like it's my responsibility now to set a good example of like what to do, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's true. I mean, we're in the golden ages, you know. I feel like our next 5 years are like the best years that we're probably gonna have. So I just like setting a good example and just opening the door and just having a good community around you. I think that's very important.
Yeah, I agree. I want to talk a little bit more about the racing, the specific racing. I think I talk about this all the time. We joke about it sometimes when we're talking about sponsors or whatever. But from my perspective, you've become kind of that guy in Brazil, and I feel like Brazil has always had like one male that is like top form, whether it was Thiago, Ronaldo, or Igor in the past. And I feel like you are the number 1 ranked Brazilian right now. I think that is a big deal. Do you feel any like pressure being the number 1 Brazilian guy right now? Do you feel like it's given you more opportunity, or is it something you don't even think about?
No, it's definitely something that I think about. Something that I tried to put in my race calendar. Last year I went down to Brazil and raced 2 times. I was 2 times on the podium. I think it's a little tricky because like, I mean, I'm so new to the sport. When those guys, like, whenever I was like, those guys were 10 years into the sport when I was just like starting the sport. But yeah, I mean, I feel like right now, like, there's definitely a little bit of pressure. And there's also a lot of opportunities. So it's kind of like high risk, high reward. I'm setting myself up as one of the top Brazilians. I would say Ronaldo is probably up there too. Like he's been like to 2008 Olympics, 2012 Olympics. I think he didn't do the 16, but like, man, 2008, I was like still in high school. I didn't even know like what triathlon was.
Yeah.
I mean, anyway, but yeah, it's the racing in Brazil is definitely like something that I definitely try to do and go there. My sponsors are mostly from Brazil. I think like you got the Australians also, they go to Australia to race. Like, so for me, it's very important and to solidify myself as the number one ranked Brazilian, because it's definitely like a card that I can play that the Americans can't. Because I also try to think about the other way. Like whenever the Collins Cup was around, like, hey, let me try to get into the American team. It might be easier. But I was like, it's not that easier.
Yeah, totally.
So I feel like, it definitely comes a little bit of pressure, but also comes with more opportunities when racing for Brazil and being one of the top seeded guys.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we see that a little bit. Like, my wife, Jeannie, who you obviously know super well, like she's been one of the top South Africans for a long time. I feel like that's a good thing, in terms of opportunity, but also in terms of marketing. And I think you've done a good job kind of surrounding yourself around Brazilian sponsors who support Brazilian athletes. And I think that's, that's cool. You did mention it just now, like you haven't been racing that long, which is crazy. And I feel like because we've trained together so much, I just think like in my mind, I forget you've only been doing it, like 5-6 years. This is your 5th year as a pro or 6th?
This is my 6th year as a pro.
It's still not that much when you compare it. We're the same age, and this is my 11th. So like, I've had double the amount of like maybe miles in my legs or racing experience, having done pro triathlons, this, that, and the other. Like one thing I think about constantly is like, if you look at a professional career, you have this, my analogy that I use is this like low-hanging fruit analogy. So first year, you do Ironman Brazil. Like there's so much abundant low-hanging fruit. Like you learn how to do nutrition, you learn how to pump your tires to the right pressure, you learn how to get in a good aerodynamic position, you upgrade things, you train smarter, you train better. Like every year, you're grabbing for lower hanging fruit until the point where there's no more fruit at the bottom. That's where I'm at, I feel like. I've extracted every little bit of low-hanging fruit available, so now I'm at the top of the tree reaching. Like what percentage of your potential do you feel like you've extracted, and like is there any low-hanging fruit left?
Yeah, I feel like I hope there's some hanging fruit left for me. Like I said, like I mean, before turning pro, I had like 2 years in triathlon, so it's been like this is my 8th season, give it or take, like overall. Yeah. So I had a very successful season in 2022. That was like when I got second in the North American Champs. I did like 6 months before, I had like the Cozumel performance, which was my first Ironman. And then last year I had Ironman Brazil, which was like also like a low 8 hours Ironman. But yeah, I feel like Ironman is complicated because it's hard to nail and feel like you nailed. I feel like Cozumel was a very good performance that I had. But it's definitely like, I didn't know what to expect.
Yeah.
And then Des Moines was like, okay, I think I can do this well. But I was a little cautious, like, and not to like overdo it and like just try to get a Kona slot, which is one of my dream goals. Yeah. But yeah, I feel like there's definitely some areas I feel like I haven't nailed the race yet. Like I feel like my run is definitely, I mean, you train with me, I think my run is definitely up to, I feel like I'm definitely leaving some stones unturned there.
Sure.
I'm trying to figure out how to actually execute a run race that I can be proud of in an Ironman. And also in the 7.3, I haven't been running fast in 7.3. Like I've been very consistent, like 114s, 115s, but like I had one or two 113s and one 110, but like I feel like I should be running faster than that. And like, and also like the biking, I feel like I'm very new to cycling too. So I think running comes more naturally because I've been running my whole life, sure. Like playing soccer, tennis, but like biking is a different kind of stimulus that you have to do. Yeah. And I feel like I've seen some really good gains this year on the bike. I just haven't been able to show it yet because I didn't have great swims. Yeah. So it's triathlon.
yeah, for sure.
But definitely, I think there's a lot of hanging fruits that I'm trying to collect. And I definitely been stagnated a little bit this past 2 years. Like I feel like I haven't improved insane, or my results haven't shown that, but I feel like maybe the performance will come. Like that's what I'm hoping to believe, and that's what we all believe, right?
I mean, that's it. I mean, I talk about this with Jeannie a lot. Like, you're going to have points in your career where you're on fire and the results are coming and everything's kind of rolling, and then you're just going to have moments where you just have to shovel shit.
Yeah, and I feel like those are the moments that actually shows your character, you know, like,
sure.
so how much can you get hit and get up and actually come back and perform stronger? Because, it's not always like, it's not always flowers on the neighborhood, you know, like sometimes you gotta go through the dark stuff. And I mean, I haven't even like gone through a lot of dark stuff, but it's just like, I've been like, feel like I'm underperforming the last 9-12 months, but like, it's definitely like, I feel like there's definitely some hanging fruits there I can collect. And
it doesn't always have to be like a big thing, like, oh, I have this massive injury or I have this massive setback or whatever. Like sometimes it's just a combination of things where you're just like, you just can't seem to get it like perfect on the day, but like every single time you go, you pick up a little something and you're like, okay, I'm going to improve the next time, you know? So it's coming for you. Like you just have to keep staying the course. You know?
I just got to put all the pieces together, you know? Like
we say it all the time though. It's funny. We joke in our training. We're like, oh yeah, all you got to do is swim 48 minutes. You got to bike 4:10 and then you just got to run 2:40.
Easy.
It's a 7:45, but easier said than done. I mean, that's just like you said, Ironman is tricky, but I think we're doing the right stuff and you're doing the right stuff to continue going there. I mean, at least from my perspective, I feel like there's still so much for you to try race-wise. There's still so much for you to try training-wise. Like if I look back on my career, like year 6, if I look at year 6, that would have been 2019. And that's the athlete. Like I'm such a significantly different athlete now than what I was in 2016. And I felt like my best years of my career were years like 7, 8, 9. Hopefully now I'm getting into some good years as well. So anyways, like I think you've got a lot to look forward to. One thing that, you know, I know very well about you is like you've tried a lot of different type of training, a lot of different types of like training styles, self-coaching, having coaches. Like what do you like about maybe a self-coaching approach versus having a coach approach? Because you've tried a lot in the last couple of years.
I'm still figuring out what I like, what I don't like, but I think what I like the most is having a very good environment, a good training squad. I feel like that's what is the most valuable thing for me. It's just like having people that I can rely to be there and be training and be having the same mindset, the same goals, because we're all like trying to be better. And like if it works for some people, I'm happy if it works for another guy, but it's probably going to work for me too. So. I feel like that's the most important lesson that I learned from my whole career is whenever I perform the best is whenever I'm like having fun in training, like and not like overdoing it, but like also like having a good balance, like with friendships and everything. So, and I feel like we got a good thing going now in Boulder. Like I feel like it's been like on and off sometimes, but like I feel like we're trying to, of course, there's like you cannot do everything with everyone, otherwise you're just gonna get burned out. But I feel like it's like the training squad and the surrounding yourself with people that you can count off and like have the same mindset and same kind of goals, even though they're not racing the same thing. I think it's very beneficial. Yeah.
I think that's something that we've both recognized. I don't know if we've even had like a specific conversation about it, but I think we both recognize the value of having different people around and just all kind of sharing the pain and making it half the pain. I think we've done that together just one-on-one, but I think it's important to have like just like an aura, a vibe, a culture that's been lacking in Boulder on the triathlon scene. And I don't know, I think we're trying our best to try and create it.
Yeah, I think we got a good thing going on like right now. And like, you can have like the best coach, but if you don't have a good environment, you're not going to succeed. Like, I mean, you can have a good coach and you can fully believe in him. And like, there's 2 paths to success, you know, like I think there's guys who like to do their own thing and there's guys who need like a squad, need like some people to be around and just to have a little bit more like will to get out of the door.
Yeah. I think like it's one of those things where it's like you need, like you said, there's some people in town who are just happy to put their headphones in and ride Zwift and just get it done.
Yeah.
But like you just have to understand the type of person you are. And like I know you well enough to know that if you have a coach that says, hey, Andre, I need you to ride Zwift every day, put your headphones on and smash this power, you're going to last 3 weeks doing that, right?
Yeah.
It's just not going to work.
Not going to work.
One thing I've always kind of like, you know, just as a friend and as like a fan of all my friends and, you know, triathlon in general, like one thing I've really admired about you is kind of like your outlook and perspective. Like you've always been so optimistic, generally positive, stoked on triathlon. Like you're always willing to push hard. Is that something that you naturally possess, or do you wake up in the morning and be like, no, I'm going to be super positive today and push myself?
Nah, I think that's like kind of like one of my fortes, I guess. Like I'm very positive guy. I always try to like I mean, there's always somebody having a worse day than yours, to be honest. Like, if you look like at the broader scheme of things, like,
Totally.
man, we're doing triathlon. We're living in Boulder.
Yeah.
We're in the freaking mountains. We're not having to sit on a desk job.
Yeah.
We're doing what we love. Like, we're 30 years old. Like, I mean, there's worse thing happening in the world right now. So, like, I'm always trying to look, Rachel doesn't, like, my girlfriend doesn't really like when I say this, but like, it's like, yeah, I mean, it's definitely, it's something that I always try to keep in mind, like that there's other things going on in the world that is a lot worse than what we're doing right now, even though if you're going through a rough patch or like something that is not really happening for you right now, like are not going your direction, I feel like, yeah, that's when I'm having a bad day, I'm trying to think about other stuff and like just put triathlon in perspective so I can like focus on and actually have a good vibe for the day, I guess.
Yeah. Do you have to like actively recalibrate, or is it something where you're just like, it's natural for you to be like, okay, this day's going to crap, or I've had a race where something gone really bad and it has, or I'm underperforming, or I didn't finish the race, or I'm sick, or I'm hurt, or whatever. Like a good example is last week you fell off your bike and crashed. Like, are you able to get right back up and be like, no, I'm going to focus on the positive. I'm going to get healthy. I'm going to use this as a little reset. Like, it's what I needed anyways. Like, what's the thought process?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely comes and goes. Of course, there's some moments where you're like, oh my God, like I'm having a hard time getting over this. Like, but yeah, like something like the crash is like, oh, you went down. Like, there's nothing you could have done about it now. Like, you're already down, you're already hurt. Good thing you didn't break anything, so you can. That's a positive. Okay, let's focus on the healing because you cannot do anything else. Let's try to recalibrate and focus. But I think all that stuff comes very natural for me because like, I know triathlon is not everything in my life. I really love and breathe triathlon. I want to be the best version of myself. But like, I know at the end of the day that I don't need to be a world champion to be fulfilled, to be happy for the rest of my life. Like, I just want to be the best version of myself. And if that's like a stone in the way, like I just have to deal with it and like just try to move on. But like, yeah, it's definitely like the challenges are like also like opportunities for you to grow. I feel like you come a lot stronger out of like harsh moments or challenges. The challenges you have to overcome, they're gonna actually like, I mean, it's crazy, but if you get people that are coming back from injury, like, I mean, Lucy Charles, like they always come and like they have that fire inside them, burning so hard. So I think you got to use the challenges and the struggles as fire to the fuel. And that's what I try to like, okay, you've done this, like you already went through this one or two times in your life, so you can do it. Just try to focus one day, another dollar, just another one day, one day in front of the other, man. And like, you got to overcome it. Everything shall pass. So that's one of the other phrases that I always think about myself, like everything shall pass.
Yeah. What's the other one you told me all the time? A calm water never made a skilled sailor?
Yeah, a calm water never made a skilled sailor.
Yeah, he tells me that all the time.
That's all when you're going peak to peak, getting like blown all by the wind. Like, I feel like that's like, you're not gonna get better on your bike if you don't ride in the wind, my man.
100%. I remember running in 2020, and you said that to me for the first time, and I was like, I like used that as a mantra in Ironmans. I was like, oh, calm water never made a skilled sailor. I'm gonna go a little bit harder right now. Yeah. So yeah, that was I always appreciate those little tidbits that you can pick up, and that's also the fun part about having training partners is like sometimes it's just like the little things someone says in training that like just help you tremendously. You know, whether you're in the race or in a hard training session or just trying to like get through it. You know. You mentioned your girlfriend Rachel twice. Like, you guys have been together for quite some time now, probably 5 years.
Yeah, getting to 5 years this summer.
Yeah. What role does she play in your success?
Oh man, Rachel is she's very supportive, and she's always willing to sacrifice her training to my training, which now I realize that she's done that quite a lot for me, and I sometimes don't really value her enough for that, and that's something that I'm trying to be more aware, like that she gives a lot more for me than I give for her. I'm kind of like selfish when it comes to my training. I think we all are, but she's just like has a very special heart and very like she just cares about everyone. Yeah. So that's like very, very helpful when I'm like trying to, when I'm having some struggles, or like she always tries to help put me up, and like, I mean, or like showed me that she's been through worse too, like, like, so I mean, it's just like good to have somebody around the corner that understands what you're doing. I feel like that's the main point, and then like just being very supportive of what I'm doing, like, and just caring and like giving back like to me. So that's like, it's very I'm very grateful to have her on my side.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think like, I talked about this with all the guests that I've had on the podcast, because a lot of the guests that I've had on are high performing endurance athletes, and a lot of them have partners who are also high performing endurance athletes. And it's really difficult. I would find it difficult, I think, in a different type of relationship if that person didn't understand. So like the good thing about my wife, Jeannie, and Rachel, for you, like they get everything that you're going through at all times. So that's a huge part of it as well. But I think like one thing that I think about and that I've talked to the guests about as well is like, I think from the outside looking in, this triathlon power couple lifestyle is like so sick and it looks so awesome. Oh, you guys are just like, you're both living this parallel track. It's amazing. And you can look at it from that perspective for sure. But like, what are maybe some of the challenges that you guys like work through? I'm sure they're going to be very similar to what Jeannie and I go through,
Yeah, man. Behind the curtains is the whole different story. I mean, having two high performance athletes in the household is a very, very hard challenge.
Yeah.
I mean, I've always admired how Tim and Rini did it, because I think if they had struggles, they kept it very, very quiet.
Yeah.
But I'm sure they had a lot. But yeah, it's just like the most difficult thing for me is like whenever you're having success and your other partner isn't, is like one of the biggest struggles, because you cannot cherish the same moments. Like it's amazing when you guys have a good race. You guys both like finish on the podium. Like those are the days you're like, oh my God, like let's remember those days, because it's hard when somebody's having a fun time and you're not.
Yeah.
And there's healthy arguments. There's like, just like, it's hard to deal with emotions. It's a very difficult environment whenever things are not going the way they're supposed to with one person or the other.
Yeah.
Whenever both having a bad time, that's all good. I mean, it's not all good, but at least you understand and like you're just like, okay, let's just.
You're in the sorrows together.
Yeah, I'm watching my mom not to swear here, but it's like, it's just like whenever one person's having, and I feel like Rachel, I feel bad for her because she just had like, whenever I started dating her, I thought she was gonna be more successful than she's gonna be better. So she just have better results than I would have in the beginning. And that turned really fast because she just had struggles. Like she just had setbacks and injuries and surgery. So like she just dealt with so much. Actually, before Cozumel, like when my first Ironman, she was like, don't go, like stay with me, like I'm here. Like I was like, no, but I gotta go, like I gotta race. Like I know it sucks for you, but like I gotta go do my job. And like that was like a performance that changed my life, like that was like a day that like if I hadn't done that, like it would basically I wouldn't. Yeah, I mean it's just like something that like some days you just gotta follow your gut and like be a little selfish. But what I feel like this is like a very deep talk here, but like it's just like you just gotta make sure that you give back to your partner. And that's something that I sometimes struggle.
Yeah. In the podcast with Alexi, he said the river never flows both ways.
Yeah.
So there's going to be times in which it's flowing one way for a while and then it's going to flip and it's going to go the other way. And I think Jeannie and I always talk about it in terms of like energy balance. Like sometimes you're just going to need to demand the energy. And there's going to be times when you have to give that energy back. And like, in a relationship and in a marriage, like that ultimately has to become 50-50 down the line. But like, I know exactly what you're talking about. I struggled really hard in the beginning of Jeannie and I's relationship because she won like 10 70.3s in 2 years. And I was like getting like 14th. And it was really difficult to like, we always felt like it was big picture. I could come home and be like, a win for her is a team win. I could always like feel that way, but it was really difficult. Like going to the race, her spraying the champagne and like me walking away with zero money and zero podium and nothing, you know what I mean? It took many years for me to kind of level out where our performances kind of came more in line. So if Rachel's just got to stay the course, she's got to keep training. Like if she keeps training, everything will ride. I think similar to us comparing ourselves to the best in the world in triathlon, like if you just keep showing up and you keep putting in the work, like you're ultimately going to get there. So, it's definitely an interesting dynamic. I think we could do an entire podcast with our spouses about the, the dynamics of a triathlon power couple. But anyways, I don't want to hold up too much of your time, but I'm curious to hear more about what the goal is for the rest of the year, because right now you're sitting third in the Ironman Pro Series, which is massive after having raced Oceanside, Ironman Texas, and 70.3 Boulder. Like what's the goal for the rest of the year?
Yeah, so I feel like this year has presented a new challenge, which is the Pro Series, and I really think that's like it would suit me, and it actually suits me really well. But doing 3 Ironmans in the same year, it's a very difficult task. Whenever you cannot pick all the Ironman races, there's only a few you can do.
Yeah.
And those races are very competitive. So, yeah, I mean, sitting third is very, very, very solid. But I'm very aware that rankings can go down if I don't have, like, I feel like I was like around 10th for most of the races this year. So I was like 13th, 14th in Oceanside, 11th in Texas, missed this Kona lot by 1. And then in Boulder was like 12. So basically, like, that's my true. I think that's kind of like, if it were to come down to the same of the year and I keep having the same performances, I'll probably come down at around like 10th to 15th, which is still very good, like to be in the top 15 of the world. But for me to really get in the top 5, which is kind of like my goal from the beginning of the year, I really need to put an Ironman that I'm like, oh my God, that was a good one. That was like that was a good hitter, you know. So I originally was gonna do Lake Placid, but I feel like that's coming up a little too close since with the crash. I had a little ego before Boulder too. The injuries that people don't really. I mean, it's hard. I'm not gonna put my mouth on the trumpet and just like, but yeah, it's like a little. It's hard to keep healthy. I feel like most guys already like Liferman, like Thomas Rodriguez, like people are like struggling to keep healthy and race consistently, and it's a very hard task. So I'm putting all my eggs in the basket for Frankfurt, Ironman Frankfurt, which is the last Ironman that you can do besides Kona. Because right now, like if I don't perform well in an Ironman, it's gonna be, I'm already gonna be on the top 20, top 30 of the world, which is very solid. But for me to maintain that ranking, I need to put a very good score on the board and do another one, which would be Kona. Yeah. So yeah, it's like the rest of the year basically relies on Frankfurt. I have like 9 weeks to prepare from today. I'm feeling confident I'm gonna bounce back from this crash, and like and I haven't really nailed it. Texas was like, it was an average result, even though it was 11th was decent, but it was like I could have done a lot better. So I think like that performance will come in Frankfurt, and then hoping that I can get my Kona slot and race Kona, and that would be my 3rd Ironman of the year. And if I do those well, I think I will be on the top 10 for sure. Yeah. Maybe top 7, top 6, depending on it's so interesting, this new Ironman series. I think is so exciting. I think people are not really, the audience is not really that deep into it yet, but I think it will be very interesting come Kona, and like comes like the points, whoever, if Sam Lalo or Magnus go and like have one of those exceptional performances again, is going to be come down like, how far back are you? Or like, so it's like, and it's a lot of money down the line. Like it's money that we never been presented in the sport. Like, I mean, you and I, like the chance of winning $50,000 is like winning 5, 7, 10, 7.3s, you know, like it's money that we never seen before. So it's kind of like life changing. So I hope they really optimize that series for next year and like really, but yeah, the goal is to be competitive in the series until the end of the year, but like, we'll see how Frankfurt goes. Because I know my body's like, if you do 3 Ironmans, kind of like not really 100%, I don't think, you're probably going to sacrifice a couple of years of your career. That's what I started to think. Like, I mean, our body's like not like our the other massage therapist in Boulder said, like, ain't nobody bulletproof, my man.
I will tell you that is definitely from firsthand experience. Get to year 11, bro. It starts really unraveling a little bit.
Yeah, so you got to make some smart calls. But yeah, that's kind of like what I'm thinking about. And if Frankfurt doesn't go out, and perhaps I don't get to go to Kona, I would just focus on getting like, I want to chase my first Ironman win. Yeah, so that would be another goal that I'll have in mind.
Yep. One last question here before we get into the rapid fire to round out our conversation today. What, 10 years from now, so you'd be 41, you're looking back on your career, chances of you being retired or close to retirement are pretty high. What's the one result that you're looking back and being like, yeah, that was the one?
Oh man, I'm hoping there's more results coming the next 10 years. But
like the one you'd be most proud of looking back.
I feel like Cozumel, my first Ironman as a pro, was very, very special. I feel like that's the race I took it by the horns. And that's a race that a lot went on, and like I was like 3rd, like with Christian Blumenfeld, like the reigning Olympic champion. And I was like, I was gonna go like 740, 741, but I missed the finish line. Yeah. And I still like had the will to come back and ran like 500 meters more, and like I still reeled it in a top 5. And man, as soon as I crossed the finish line, I collapsed straight to the ambulance. Like it was like I had like zero energy on my body left. Yeah. Like it was, and that was, I mean, it is today the top South American time. So I have this South American record for Ironman distance Yeah. So that was 7:43. So that's one result that I really look back and. But yeah, I mean, my first time in Kona as a pro is also like something that I was like a 10-year kind of goal thing. So that's kind of like the second one. If you
could forecast like what the next 10 years of your career were, would it be a top 5 in Kona, podium in Kona, winning an Ironman?
Yeah, my next goal now is like I want to be top 10 in Kona.
Yeah,
top 10 in Kona. I would check my career list.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. That's huge. That's huge. All right, man. You ready to get into the rapid fire?
Let's go.
Round us out. All right. I actually spent a lot of time thinking about these, like a lot. I was up like too late last night thinking about these. So here we go. Rapid fire questions. You have to retire from triathlon and you can only do a professional sport as your next career. What sport are you choosing?
Surfing.
Surfing. That's crazy. You think you could be good enough at surfing to make money?
I wouldn't think about making money, but I was thinking more like about lifestyle. Like I was just like, oh my God, it's so nice. I just should wake up, like have a house on the beach or like be like going to Tahiti, Philippines and just like having, I mean, I love the mountains, but I think my heart is on the beach. Yeah. I feel like the perfect scenario would be to spend 6 months here in Boulder and 6 months in the beach.
Easy.
Yeah.
I think I would have to choose like darts or something.
Darts.
Yeah. All right. Would you rather choose one fresh, delicious New York bagel for $3.99 or half a dozen day-old bagels from the supermarket on sale for $3.99?
One New York bagel.
One New York bagel. That's shocking.
Yeah. I mean, if you asked me that question like 3 years ago, definitely the day-old bagels because like it would be like a lot more on my budget, but I think now I appreciate a good quality. And the New York bagels, man, they are amazing.
I know. They just go crazy. All right. What's the best part about living with Jeannie and I?
You guys are so organized.
Really?
Yeah. I was like, yeah, you guys are like very, I usually on my household, Rachel, I'm going to get in trouble for this, but I have to like look up after Rachel a little bit.
Oh, like, yeah.
So just
that's
like
all Jeannie.
Jeannie's, it might not be you. Jeannie's very like, she's very respectful and you guys are, it's just like, I felt like I was not having to do as much as I do at home. I don't know if it's just like you guys are taking ownership, but Jeannie is very, she's
got mom energy.
Jeannie's very polite, like, and she's like that South African.
Yeah. Just to clarify, Andre doesn't live with us right now. We have just lived together on training camps and other venues like a lot, probably over a year.
I think our last training camps were all together. So in St. George, Tucson, you name it.
Yeah, tons. What's the worst part about living with Jeannie and I?
You guys are up early.
Yeah. Again, that's all Jeannie, dude. It's Jeannie and Millie.
I was having to struggle to go to bed earlier. Like, but I just like sometimes Rachel was in the other time zone and like, but I feel like, I don't know, man. I've always been a nerdy bird. And recently, I don't know why I just cannot get out of bed, like firing all cylinders. Yeah. Like when I was younger, like I was like maybe like early 20s, like I was like the first one out of the door, like just guns blazing, like 5 a.m., 6 a.m., like the first one, like what does they say? The
one bird gets the worm.
Yeah, and like the first one in the gym, like opening the lights. Like, but nowadays, like I'm like, I just like struggle to get out.
You turn 30, bro. That's it. It's easy.
Yeah, I just like
that's what happened.
I was like, even this week, I was like, I'm gonna try to get rolling faster here in the morning. But I was like, I'm just gonna sit in the computer, have my coffee, and then start rolling.
That was really the problem. The coffee machine was right next to Andre's
bedroom. That was actually,
like,
but it wasn't a big deal.
All right. Okay. What's one thing you're not leaving Costco without?
Oh, there's many things that I don't leave Costco without. One thing.
The single essential.
I think like Oh, that's a very good question, man. I feel like I always buy salmon when I go there, and that's a good one. It's the cheapest and the best salmon I can get.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah,
a lot of salmon talk on the podcast today. All right, I got two more for you. You found a $20 bill on the ground, running or riding. What are you doing with the $20 bill?
I'm keeping it.
Just
put it in my wallet.
Just savings.
Saving for like a good snack for later on or something.
Yeah, snacks. That's pretty good. All right. And then final one. Would you rather be 30 minutes early to every appointment or event everywhere or 30 minutes late to everything? Swimming, airport, everything.
30 minutes early. Although I'm always like 5 minutes late, the Brazilian time.
Yeah.
But 30 minutes late would be kind of like disrespectful.
Yeah.
But 30 minutes early, I mean, I actually showed up early here for this podcast. I was like, oh my God, if I don't show up early, Justin's going to be like texting me and everything. He's going to be ready at 3:15.
Yeah.
So I was like, I better show up early.
No, you did great. You did great. All right, man. Final question to wrap us up here today. Like, when you're done with the sport, what's the legacy that you wish to have left?
Man, I wish to inspire new kids to chase their dreams. I feel like if that's triathlon, if that's like doing gaming in the computer, if that's like, doing whatever, if it fuels your life, I feel like that's the most important thing. I feel like if you're doing something that you really enjoy, it really brings a lot of purpose in your life. And it's actually really like very overwhelming, like the support I get from my fans, like in Brazil. Like it's like there's people that like really look up to me, and I'm starting to realize that. Like I'm like the other guy, some guy messaged me like, hey, I'm 12 right now, but like I'm really looking up to you. Like I want to be like one day I'm gonna race next to you. I was like, oh my God, man, that's so awesome. Like I'm actually gonna give the guy like a shirt, because like or
Huge,
something like
yeah.
just like, I mean, that's nothing for me. Like, and like it's just giving back. Like I feel like it's just like inspiring others and like showing that anything's possible. You know, like it's just like, I mean, Ironman doesn't say it. That's a very good slogan. Like anything's possible if you put your heart and your soul to it. And I feel like with hard work and dedication, you can get a lot of places, and being respectful and like just having like good values, I think you can get a long way. But like really chasing your dreams and working hard for it, I think that's very important.
Beautiful answer. All right, man. That's all I got. Thanks so much for coming on.
No, it was a pleasure to be here.
That was fun. All right, man. Thank you. All right. Absolutely love spending a little bit more time with my buddy, Andre Lopes. Had a great time. Just learning more about his background. I knew a lot of those stories, but there were some things that he reminded me of. You know, when you spend hours with someone on the bike or out there running, you know, you say little things here and there that you pick up on, but you get reminded of them in a conversation like this. So I really valued that on our chat today, and I hope you did too. Definitely check out Andre's social media, and we'll see you in the next episode.